Now we get into the craziest, weirdest thing I have seen in a minute. Marvel Tokon, fighting spirits, fighting souls, something like that. So I woke up from a nap. I put out the most recent video, which thank you so much to the crazy reception that video's gotten. Maybe you're listening right now and you discovered me from that video. I got like a surge of people subscribing to the podcast, funny enough. I put out the video on, I think, Wednesday, something like that. And then I just like took a bunch of naps. I just slept for the whole day because I was tired. So I wake up at like 3 p.m. or something, seconds after the state of play is finished. And I wake up to a message on Discord from someone in a server saying, Arxis is making a 4v4 Marvel game. And I went, what? What's going? What? No. What? Hang on. Am I awake? Did I read that right? I was like rubbing my eyes, going, no, that didn't happen. What? Yes. You heard that right. So this is there is a long history. I don't know if you're not into fighting games or specifically following like the meta narrative of the fighting game side of the games industry, this is a really fascinating development in the history of the genre. So when you say Marvel fighting game, some people might think of X-Men Mutant Academy. Those would be 0 people. Everyone thinks of Marvel vs. Capcom. It's one of the most, I'd say, iconic fighting game series. Specifically, Marvel 3, I found over time, has an incredible amount of like cultural staying power. For some reason, I don't know what it is. Okay, I've noticed a lot of like online artists were super inspired by Marvel 3. I remember kind of like being around and sort of, I never used Newgrounds as a kid, but when Marvel 3 came out, I remember just like, they loved that game on Newgrounds. There were so many animations, you could find so much fan art and stuff like that. Marvel 3 is like this really enduring game to a lot of people. I think it has to do with just the visuals and the characters, and it's not quite the same smorgasbord as Marvel 2, but it has such a boldness to it and so much style. I think Aiding's really good at that kind of style and making characters feel like they kind of should feel, if that makes sense. That it just sticks in people's minds. And you've people always associate Marvel with Marvel vs. Capcom. And then MVCI comes out, Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. Infamous botch. And looking on it now, especially with Tokon, it is so, I think one of the biggest tragedies of that game is that it is a victim of timing. A while ago on the podcast, I talked about going back to check it out just like in training mode. Because I'm a training mode guy. I just like finding funny, neat little combos, right? And just experimenting with that game and then playing some arcade mode and stuff. I was like, man, the biggest tragedy is that this game's actually really fun. It plays so well. The characters, that game has some of my favorite versions of those characters in fighting game form, like gameplay wise. They are so cool. Like I am, it's a 2v2 game. I wish it was a 3v3. I wish it was a 4v4 because I can't decide on 2 characters to play. There's so many cool characters in that game in a way that even Marvel 3 like didn't really appeal to me. Where I'm like, there's only like 1 or 2 characters I really kind of dig. MVCI suffered from, I say timing. It was basically like, it's kind of the nightmare scenario of brand integration, or what would you call it? Brand synergy. That's probably the right term. That was at a time when Disney Marvel was really coming down on Capcom's development team to make sure that if they were making a Marvel game, it was going to be like the movies. You better make it like the movies. This is also before they got the rights back via acquisitions and buyouts and stuff to the Fantastic Four and the X-Men. So there's no Fantastic Four and there's no X-Men characters. And genuinely, I'll be real, I think that if there was no Tom Holland Spider-Man like cross collaborative deal between Sony and Disney, I don't even think Spider-Man would have been in that game. Like, legitimately. I don't even think Spider-Man and Venom would have been in that game. I think they would have been that spiteful. So infamously, Marvel also tried to de-emphasize. So they literally, like, they basically wrote out the Fantastic Four from the comics practically for, like, a little bit. It's essentially trying to... Oh, they tried to push the Inhumans as the new X-Men and stuff. They're like the new kind of mutant replacement. It didn't work, right? But they were doing it to literally try to devalue those brands so that they could more easily buy them back. And Marvel Infinite got caught in the crossfire of that. So just, it had this really weak roster. It had this ugly art style. Man, like, I was looking at it recently, and you forget just how ugly that game is until you look at, like, Ryu on the title screen. You're like, God, this game is ugly as sin. And for all of that, like, a lot of the game's biggest problems were visual and roster based. And for all of that, they managed to put together a really fun game in spite of these hurdles, right? The gameplay team was really cooking with Marvel Infinite. You should go check it out. But alas, it was legitimately just so unappealing in the way that a fighting game has to be appealing, which is characters and visuals. Visual feedback and information and the look of the character and the art style is so important for a fighting game, right? Graphics do matter. I would say more accurately, the visuals matter. And the characters you're playing as in a character-focused game, right? So now, Capcom is kind of back on their feet in the fighting game division. They were kind of in their quest to pull themselves out of the slump of, I would say, the 2010s era, like, let's appeal to the West, quote unquote, the West. That is America. They were kind of fixing up, rehabilitating, reworking different parts of the company. You know, they've always had this sort of multiple team structure where different teams work on different franchises or sometimes genres and stuff. Like, they have a fighting game division essentially. And so it's like, okay, let's make New Devil May Cry. Let's kind of not reboot, but let's get like a fresh start on Resident Evil. You know, let's make a new Mega Man game. Like, let's brush up all these things. And the one thing that they still had to work on, because Street Fighter V was still in active development. I mean, it lasted like 7 years. Active support, I should say, was the fighting game division. Like, let's take a really good crack at it with SF6. So they come back with SF6. Everyone loves it. It's a great game. And then they start putting out these collections. And there's the Marvel vs. Capcom collection. Everyone's like, holy shit. Oh my God, are they repairing the relationship? Could they make another Marvel vs. Capcom game? Could we get Marvel 4, like a true Marvel 4? And then Marvel Tokon announced an Arc System Works joint. And suddenly, certain things get weird and other things start to make a lot of sense. So first of all, this feels like a huge departure. If you say Marvel fighting game, the first thing people say is, oh, with Capcom, right? Wouldn't that be the first choice? And genuinely, I would love to know. I am so curious as to whether or not, like, who did they go to first? Did they go to Capcom initially? Was it something like they went to Capcom, they approached Capcom initially, but Capcom was all hands on deck with SF6. And they were like, okay, we'll look somewhere else. Because this was facilitated by Sony, right? I mean, they own Spider-Man. They're kind of interested in the brand, the Marvel brand. Then did they then go to Arc System Works and say, hey, you guys are you're kind of hot right now. This probably would have been around the time Strive came out or a little after it, right? So they were just coming off of like a 1-2 punch sort of Dragon Ball FighterZ and Guilty Gear Strive, two massively successful games. Strive obviously less successful than Dragon Ball, but for an original property and the Guilty Gear series, huge success, like the biggest success they've ever had of like a completely ArcSys owned game, right? So they're kind of like hot, and there's suddenly this big wave of recognition for Arc System Works games because they've sort of been this underappreciated underdog for like decades, right? And then was it like, oh, okay, you guys are like the next. Is it like we consider you, we're interested in at least a 2D game. I don't know if Bandai Namco would do a 2D fighter, but we consider you the second biggest name now in 2D fighting games. Huge glow up. And then I guess they just got to work on it. And when I was remember like when I was just describing all of this stupid brand synergy stuff with like you got to make it like the movies, and you got to have a cinematic story mode. Although I think that might have been pushed more by Capcom. They were really into that at that time. They were trying to be Mortal Kombat. But then you get to Marvel Tokon, and what a departure, man. What going from Iron Man has to look like Robert Downey Jr. to Iron Man is going to look like a Gundam. He's going to look like a Gundam. Miss Marvel is going to be there, and she's going to look like an anime girl with big moe eyes. And Doctor Doom Doctor Doom, he kind of just looks like Doctor Doom, They didn't actually do that much. I love the fur cape, though. Or the fur coat on the cape. I think that's a great... Marvel Rivals, I think, has a similar design for Doom. I love that. It feels like if you were going to add anything to the classic Doom design, that feels like a really nice little accent. Makes him look a little more like... I think it kind of puffs up the regality a little bit. I think it's a great little touch. But you've got... Ghost Rider. People were like, oh my god, Ghost Rider just feels like a Kamen Rider character. And they did this little dev, like behind the scenes, how did this happen video right after the reveal. And the person from, I think, PlayStation is saying, like, essentially the way that they are relating the story is ArcSys came back with the initial concepts, like maybe art, maybe a model or something of like Iron Man. And they said, yeah, well, this is great, but it is, it's Iron Man, and we want you, it feels like you are trying to stick to a traditional idea of the characters. But what we want you to do, and he literally says this, we want you to make your version of the Marvel characters. Like, they literally ceded control over to the artists at ArcSys. Obviously, I'm assuming they're approving and they've got final say on it. It's not like they're just completely allowed to run wild. But the fact that like they then come back with like Gundam Iron Man, and they go literally the way that he explains it is, we were like, oh, that's awesome. Yeah, that's exactly what we want you to be doing. Like, that's crazy. A few years ago would have been unthinkable. I guess now it's a little more understandable, maybe it's not as surprising, because Marvel Rivals came out recently, and that has, I wouldn't say like super, it's different. It's definitely like its own art style. some of the characters look a little bit different, right? But honestly, for the most part, I think Marvel Rivals is actually fairly close. It's got like the tech suit thing going on, with a lot of the characters. But for the most part, it looks like something that could have easily stepped out of an actual, Marvel comic, or maybe a design in one of the movies or something. You're never going to see Gundam Iron Man in an MCU film. Probably not, Well, he's fucking dead now, so probably not. Maybe Ironheart. I don't know. Maybe Ironheart. But not Tony Stark. The other thing is that gameplay-wise, when I said some things made a lot of sense, what I'm talking about is, so you know how Strive had that 3v3 mode? That was like a weird tag thing with assists, and it was just fucking chaos. Really goofy chaos, which honestly I think is a good mode to have in the game, just for like sheer funny factor. I remember thinking, I might have even said it on the podcast a while ago, but I just remember thinking, man, this is a lot of effort they're putting into this. Which is funny because, they already did fighters. They already have a 3v3 game. It's interesting that they're putting so much time and development effort that they're literally like delaying other stuff so that they can work more on this 3v3 mode. And now this comes out and I'm like, oh. They were pushed. When you look at the chaos of Strive 3v3, and then you look at 8 characters on screen in Tokon, you go, oh, okay. So that was like kind of a stress test. In my mind, I'm thinking that they are using that as like an experiment. Because honestly, you can see some Strive tech in there. There's stuff that straight up looks like maybe it's like a launcher button, like from Marvel 3 or something. And you kind of associate MVC games with having the launcher into the jump up, auto jump up and like do a big combo in the air, right? The aerial rave stuff. But like, man, some of the stuff in Tokon looks a lot like a dust combo. And also it has like Strive wall splats and some kind of area shift wall break mechanic, basically. Like there's multiple different stages to fight on within a single stage. You like knock the opponent into somewhere else, which I think for a superhero game is a great idea. Like in these big high powered superhero battles, you're just like blowing someone through a wall or some shit. Like I think it works really well. Like you'll often see them smash each other into various different locations. I think that's a fun, very natural idea for a superhero fighter. The move to 4v4 is like, I was literally the other day thinking, man, like where else could they go with a tag game, like a 4v4? Like a lot of people are doing 2v2 now. 4v4? I mean, that just feels like a lot. Is that too much? And then they just come out and I don't know how it's going to work. I don't know how many buttons you're going to need to control all of that. But man, this game looks pretty. I'm down. I'm super down. Look, I love Marvel comics. I don't talk about it very much, but I really do love Marvel characters. I've got like a couple anthology big ass volumes behind me of like Iron Man and Adam Warlock and stuff like that. And I have a lot of affection for many of these characters, and the idea of a pure Marvel fighting game is honestly pretty appealing to like some people are still hung up on like, but I wanted versus Capcom. Genuinely, I'll be real. I think like, okay, if there was a Marvel versus Capcom 4, it would be sick. I won't lie. But like, I would almost rather at this point just do like 2 separate games. Like have an entirely Marvel fighting game and some kind of Capcom All-Stars. Oh, we're going to talk about Capcom All-Stars later. Because, okay, back when many moons ago, many Taigen moons ago, I made a video on the side channel, which was just a little fun thing of how I would fill out a theoretical Marvel vs. Capcom 4 roster. There was this template that was floating around on the interwebs, and it had something like 60 characters or something like that, and like total. And that's a lot of characters, right? That's a lot of characters for even a fighting game, like a tag fighter with multiple seasons of DLC. That's a lot of characters. And even then, I found myself going, man, it would be nice if I could fit this person in here. I'd really want this character in here. Oh man, would I really want them? But I have to make cuts. Even with like a 30 and 30, evenly splitting the representation. Even with like a 30 and 30 setup, like right? I still found myself feeling the pain points of needing extra slots. Oh man, I just wish I had more slots. I wish I just had infinite slots. And I just had this feeling like, if this was just a Capcom All-Stars game, oh my god, you'd just be able to put in every motherfucker you'd want. You get all the staples. You would get all the need to be there characters. You could get some of the like nice fan favorites. You could get some of the weirdo picks. You could get some of the more like the obscure stuff. You could have fucking Servbot in there. Oh my god, you'd have so much freedom. And then with the Marvel game, same thing. Oh, you could get all the guys who have to be there, like the core Avengers. You get the X-Men. You could have multiple Spider-Man characters, actually, that aren't just Spider-Man and Venom. You could do like Green Goblin. I'd love to have a playable Green Goblin. Seems like it would be such a cool moveset. You could give him like a Morrigan hover dash. That would be funny. You could do. You could actually include all of the Fantastic Four. You could have a weird character. You could have fucking Howard the Duck in there. Probably not Howard the Duck, realistically, but you could go there, right? You could have a really cool spread of characters, and you could. I think you could satisfy most people, right? Look at the Marvel Rivals roster. How many characters are in Marvel Rivals right now, as of June 2025? Roster size 39 characters as of May. Okay, and launched with 33, and I mean that launch roster was really nice, right? 39 characters, like about 40 characters. And you look at the Marvel Rivals roster, maybe change a character here or there. Obviously, maybe someone who would fit well in a team shooter might not be that exciting in like a fighting game. I don't know if Jeff the Shark would be playable. I'm sorry, he can show up, but Jeff could be in the background like the hype dog in Blaze Blue. That would be awesome, actually. Just like shift a couple characters around. You'd be like, man, this would be a great fighting game roster. And that's with like 40 characters. Imagine 60 characters. And if you're making a 4v4 fighting game, I mean, you've got to have quite a few characters, right? Like you gotta have a big roster. The more characters you allow on a team, the more characters you need on the roster, just for variety's sake, right? I mean, it's like, God, if you launch, I mean, that's what the thing with 2XKO is, that like if you have four distinct, if both sides in 2XKO are playing distinct characters, there's like 40% of the roster is on screen at any given time. So, it would. I just think it would be cool to see those split up. So I'm actually happy to just see a solo Marvel fighting game. I love Arc System Works. I'm always going to be an Arc Sys fanboy. So I'm obviously excited to see what they're going to do. However, I can't wait for this game to come out. People are going to be psyched on it for a month or two, and then they're going to start complaining about insane Arc Sys balancing. because it's inescapable. It was so fun to watch. It's been so fun, genuinely, to watch people come into Guilty Gear with Strive and then be like, what the fuck are these? Why would you give Nagoriyuki an overhead that he can delay off of one of his best round start options? What? And just go, oh no, yeah, that Arxis just does shit like that all the time. They're just on another planet sometimes. I can't wait for that. So Tokon just totally just tossed a grenade into the fighting game community conversation. And there's been a lot of jokes about like people are going to play this over 2xKO. Genuinely, I think that both games will benefit from each other. I think that they have notably different appeals between just like art style, the properties that they are representing, the gameplay style. 2v2 versus 4v4 is very different. It's good. We don't know what 4v4 is like yet, but I guarantee you it'll be very different. I think there's a much more likely possibility, not that one is going to kill the other, but that people are going to get into one and then someone's going to start playing 2xKO and they're going to go for free and they're going to go, oh man, this is actually really cool. I think I like these games. Oh, there's a lot of fighting games that are this tag style. Oh, there's that really cool Marvel one. Maybe I'll check that out. 4v4? That's a crazy. And they're going to go pick up Tokon. On the other side, there'll be people who pick up Tokon because they're like, holy shit, crazy Marvel anime shit. And then they're going to go, oh, wow, these games are really fun, actually. I think I like this tag thing a lot. Hey, there's a free-to-play fighting game that's like also a tag fighter. How neat. Let me check that out. I don't even have to pay money for it. I think that's more likely how this stuff is going to work out. And then Hunter x Hunter Nen Impact, which, to be honest, I don't want to be mean, but didn't have a chance. I'm sorry, Aiding. It's just, you're making a niche budget game that that will be appreciated by a niche audience. I will see people playing it at locals and swear by it. It will be okay. What JoJo All-Star Battle R is to me, Hunter x Hunter Nen Impact will be to other people. So I can't judge too hard. I can't be too mean, but I do understand why Asper, JoJo All-Star Batman and Robin did not, set the world on fire. But I will continue to rally its praises. Okay, then I'm done with Tokon. I could go into the nitty-gritty detail of like, oh, what is it going to play like? Because they said some shit about you could maybe play they implied you could play as a solo character, and it's like, is that like the ratio system like from Skullgirls or something? Which I can't believe more tag games haven't done. It's such a good idea. Like, maybe they just meant something else. Japanese devs always talk weird. I don't know what it is. I don't think it's translation. I just think that they talk weird. I've read so many interviews with Japanese game developers, and they just fucking phrase things in this weird way. I don't know why.